a cup of coffee, then I'll go.
Pull these off so I don't get an echo. The voice lag is still going to be here. I've been so busy this week I didn't have any chance to get to it. So what you see my lips doing, the voice is going to be ahead of it, I think it is. Alright, let me see if I can get this in here. So, good morning. It was a very busy week. What are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, the time zone. My time zone doesn't change because the sun comes up at the same time, goes down pretty much the same time every day. It's your time zone that changes, and I am now on your Eastern Standard Time, although I'm still on the same time. So today my longest topic is going to be retirement health, and that's more of a mental health than a physical health. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because of a lot of things that came up over the past few weeks, but also similar questions that for a number of years people have been asking me. Second topic won't be too long, maybe it's a little lighthearted, but Colombian burgers versus the US style burger. Third is going to be my hair and what to do with it. That'll be a very fast topic. And fourth, I've got 3 questions to ask of you, and I'm going to ask you to give answers. And then, of course, we go to the question and answer. Today shouldn't take too long. It should be shorter than usual. And if you would chime in and let me know that you can hear and see everything okay, I would appreciate it. Okay, the topic that comes up a lot is, what do you do with yourself? How do you keep busy? Yeah, thank you. Michael, whatever that word is, I appreciate it. Okay. What do you do with yourself? How do you keep busy? Don't you get bored? And I've given this a lot of thought over the last few years. I mean, the quick answer is no, absolutely. I'm never bored. I'm less bored now than I probably have ever been in my life. Carlos from Armenia. Hello, Carlos from Armenia. But the reflection I've had is, what was my work pattern in the United States? What was my life like? Now, I began working when I was 10 years old. I worked in my stepfather's junkyard, and when I wasn't in school, after school, weekends, holidays, I worked in that junkyard. Left home at 15 and started washing dishes, and I worked in a kitchen, I worked as a waiter, you know, the same old story that many people have. Through my life, I've been, I guess, what you call a workaholic. I would have a full-time job, but then I would have other things that I would do. I would do web design at night. That was like a full-time job, only along with my full-time job. I did computer repairs. I did all kinds of things extra. I'd fix friends' cars. So one job was always kind of foreign to me, and was pretty typical that I would sleep anywhere from 2 to 6 hours a night. It was just always driven to do things. I can't tell you how much money I'd lost in vacations that I never took and never got to collect on. Because I love work. I've always loved work. And there's a lot of people like me that, you know, it's like if you're not working, you're going to go crazy. And so I would be a prime suspect for somebody who would go into retirement mode, go to another country, be isolated, you know, to, you know, put a gun to my head or something. but I'm so far from that. And you find that other countries have different priorities. My priority in the United States was take care of family. I never cared about being rich, although I would say I was probably, you could have called me rich twice in my life. You know, it's like you win it, you lose it. But I've had pretty good times where I've owned a couple properties, and I had 5 new cars and a new truck sitting in my driveway. God knows why. You got to spend the money on something. You know, it's annual tickets to Disney World. It's like if you wanted something, you just bought it. I mean, you know, from my point of view, I had a lot of money. But those things were never for me, they were never a priority. They were a result of all the work that I did. And so, you know, work would drive me. And I know many people in the U.S. that you get into this thing where you've got to get up, you got to get going. You know, if you're not on time, you're late. And, you know, for however you felt about work, I mean, you might have even hated every day of it, but that was the mode you had, and it becomes habit year after year after year. That's what you've got to do to survive, or in my case, that's what you've got to do to be fulfilled. Whatever the motivations are, we get into that habit. And then what happens is you go on vacation, or you move to another country, or you get sick and you're stuck in bed. Whatever it is, you find yourself with all this time, and you have no understanding or experience, good morning, of how to fulfill that. You don't know what to do with it. And that's where a lot of the question comes from, is how do you make that time useful and productive? How do you keep yourself from spiraling into a depression? How do you keep yourself from becoming, you know, so lonely? What do you do? So I would love to move to another country. I could live better on the money that I have, and you know, you hear all of those things. But once I get there, is my life going to be absolutely miserable? Yes, I know the voice isn't synchronized. I addressed that when I started. And it's not going to be synchronized this week. So, you know, what do you do? How do you handle this? Depression's a serious thing. And even as antisocial as I am, and how much I love to have alone time, and a lot of it, and I'm not a person who gets depressed. It's not really me. But twice in the 4 years I've lived down here, once about 3 years ago, and the second time was just this year, I got very depressed. And the first time was 2-3 weeks, probably, maybe 4 weeks. And this last time was actually a couple months where I just kind of stayed in my apartment. I didn't go out. I was just very depressed. Now, I wasn't depressed because I was here. I was depressed because I lost a childhood, lifelong friend. The only one that I actually had, who was left alive or kept in touch. And it hit me with like a ton of bricks. And the following day, there was another loss. I'm not going to go into details on these things, but so it was like a 1-2 punch, and it really threw me back. Plus the financial issue that I had been going through, which I'm not now, but my funds, they weren't coming through. There was a problem, and I was trying to live on peanuts, and so, you know, I was already, you know, a little unhappy because of that, and then I had that 1-2 punch, and it just I let it overwhelm me until I just said, what the hell am I doing? You know, I'm sitting here at this point feeling sorry for myself. Get the hell up. As I said, I'm not a person who gets depressed in general, but twice it happened. And what can happen is somebody can come here and not used to the kind of situation, and whatever would trigger it could be the situation in and of itself. It could just be a matter of loneliness. It could spiral and not be able to pull themselves out of it. And that, it's a serious concern. And if you're going to come here, or if you are here, you've got to take measures to address it. You can't sit back and hope that the world's going to be okay. Just like you have to buy the tickets and pack your bags, you have to put a concerted effort into making sure that you're going to be whole and healthy when you get here and you've got a life. So, what do I do with my work obsession now? Well, I'm still work obsessed. I do it mostly with the videos. Now, when I was in Ecuador, I actually went a little bit too far. I was the vice president of a charity there. I'm technically still am. I've got to go to Cuenca and sign some papers so that I can release that. But so I was involved in that. Plus, I was doing some fundraising for some Venezuelans who were in desperate situation. Plus, I was doing some employment for some people locally who couldn't find jobs. And even though I'm not a local person, I know how to do certain things. And so I created this situation where I could find this person a job and that person a job, and on top of the videos. Well, I bit off more than I could chew. You make a commitment, you got to stick through it. So I stuck through until I could extricate myself. So I did that actually before I moved here, and I determined that when I came here, I wasn't going to get that involved anymore. I'm going to stay with the videos and my life, because it's important to me to live the life that I've learned to live. In the past, when I was in the USA, as I said, it's like I didn't want to take vacations. Even on holidays, I would go in and work. I would, you could say almost obsessed. I needed it. Work is an addiction. And, I had to get my fix. Well, here, I get my fix with my video work. But what I have learned is to slow the pace, and it was an adjustment where I would intentionally take a day where I'm not really going to do anything today. I'm going to putter around, clean the bathroom or clean the house. I'll sit down, play guitar. I'm just going to be a slacker. And so I've built that into my life where I try to find a day or part of a day where I intentionally try to relax, try to learn to relax. And relaxing is something that I had to learn. I was a stress monkey. I used to, juggle 50 balls in the air at once. I was an owner, manager, vice president of a large company. So I had jobs that, all had a lot of responsibility. And, it's like if you have that, you're juggling all these balls in the air. I've learned to not do that anymore. If it's one ball, I'll focus on it. But if it's two or three, forget it. I just stay with the one ball. It's not that I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. I need to be able to chill. I needed to learn how to do that. And it took me my year in Hiron to actually sort that out, where I was away from everybody. My first year was in Cuenca. I was in a high-rise. I was going around seeing all the things that you got to see. But my second year, I went to Hiron because I need to get away from people. I need to figure out, post-illness. I had to actually figure out that time I was in bed and how that affected me. But I needed to deal with this topic. And it took me quite a while. And then after the year that I was in Hiron, I was ready. I'm glad you like the stress monkey, because that's what I was. I was ready to find a balance to my life. And I'm becoming very good at it, actually. Sometimes I get probably busier than I should. This week was crazy busy. I barely had time to prepare for this. although the entire week this topic was working in my head. But I also know when to kick back and chill a little bit. This afternoon it'll be Buffalo Bills football, and if they lose, well, there's always next year. And tomorrow I only have 2 minimal things planned, and Tuesday not very much. My only thing that I have to focus on is getting Wednesday's video done, and I've actually already filmed it this past week, so it's a matter of putting it together and editing it, the hard part. So, you know, I found my balance, but what balance can you find? And I readily admit I'm pretty unique in that, well, I need a little bit of socialization. I don't need what most everybody I know needs. I don't know if it's good or bad, but most people need a certain amount of social life. I do too, just nowhere near as much as what's typical. So you have to line up some things to keep you occupied. And if that means make a schedule, make a schedule. You know, use some of the bad habits that you were involved in when you were a stress monkey, and use it in a creative way. So for example, there's lots of volunteer work you can do anywhere you go, including here or in Cuenca or wherever you want to go. There's going to be volunteer opportunities. You can also be a mentor. Now, don't force yourself in and think, well, I know better than somebody else, but depending on what you do or what you've done in your life and what you know, you can humbly offer you to, you know, mentor in a place where it would be accepted. If you've never had a hobby, my hobby was always work, but if you've never had a hobby, you know, find a hobby. It may seem a little cliche, but you've got to keep yourself occupied and have something to look forward to that you enjoy. Here's something I would suggest to you. Do your memoirs. Everybody's life has certain lessons or adventures or something that took place that was just like spectacular or out of the ordinary, almost seemed like another lifetime. Everybody's life has something that should be shared, whether it be with your family or whatever, should be shared. Now, maybe you're not a writer. That would be a good way to do it. Sit down and just kind of write out some of these things. But do this. Take your cell phone and just video yourself telling a story. You know, think of a few things in your life and tell that story, and you can put it up on YouTube, and it doesn't even have to be for public. You can put it in a private place and then give the link to friends or family. I don't know about you, but there are many, many, many aspects of my life that I've never shared. As a matter of fact, in these videos, I have shared more in these videos than I've ever shared with anyone in my life. I have a daughter that watches these videos to learn more about me. Yes, I know that you do that. So, you consider doing something like that. It may seem tedious and boring to you, but it may be something that you can get into, but it's of value of other people. Join a gym. You know, that's you know, one of those cliche items, but there's something to it. For me, I do it because I'm still working on trying to get healthy, but personally, I hate it. I've always hated it. I do it because I know I need to do it. But some people really get into it. But the key with it is creating a routine. So even if it's only, you know, every day or 3 days a week or something, you put a routine around it where you go and you get up and you shower and you make yourself a cup of coffee, or you sit at the local cafe, you go to the gym, or maybe after the gym you go to the local cafe and you sit there and watch the world go by. But you're creating a routine. And having a routine, it's almost like, you know, kids, they thrive on having a routine. Well, the truth is we all need some sort of structure in our life, and that can give you a structure and give you something to wake up for. Travel, I mean, if you're here, these videos that I did just going around Condillo, these little towns and villages, you don't need a camera to do that, and you can go and spend more time than that. That in and of itself is feeds the soul. Travel's good. Travel's good for everybody. You know, if you're living here, hey, make a run over to Ecuador, or, well, you can't go to Venezuela, but you can go to Panama, maybe down to Brazil. But there's so much to see here in Colombia. In Ecuador, there's a lot of interesting things to do and see. So, you know, maybe build that in if you can afford to do that. Take pen to paper and give it actual thought about how to relax, learning to relax. One of the things that you can do is take a lot of walks. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Here in Armenia, it's relatively flat. You can go out and walk for a couple hours. You don't have to do a speed walk. Just go out and stroll. Just stroll. Even if you're out of shape, it won't be that big a deal. And if you get a little tired, then sit down for a few minutes. There's parks constantly, so you can, you know, sit down in the park and just take it easy. You definitely want to do something about TV. Now, I enjoy TV, and I'm not one of those that look at the TV and it's going to rot your mind. Well, maybe in the 60s and 70s it did. But, you know, TV is, you know, quite good. But I limit myself, with few exceptions, like today I'll be looking at the bills, but with few exceptions, I limit myself to the evening. TV for me generally starts around 9 o'clock. And if I'm really into it, I'll watch it until midnight or 1 o'clock. So I watch a fair amount of TV. I just don't do it in the daytime. My activity time is in the daytime. I get up generally around 6, take a shower, get ready, and by 7 or 8, I'm out, you know, doing whatever I'm going to do for the day. Then I try to get back around 1 or 2 o'clock, largely because, you know, it may rain in the afternoon. Of course, I take my umbrella with me. But you want to limit yourself to TV, because it's become so interesting and there's so much that's out there to watch, you could easily fall into the trap of you're just kind of watching TV all the time. And if you're watching TV all the time, I can tell you from having to live in bed for 2.5 years how unhealthy that was, how actually dangerous it is to be that sedate, how fat it can make you. I got huge. I mean, I'm down almost 100 pounds from those days. But it stagnates your mind because everything's being fed to you and you're not doing it on your own. So it's a different kind of activity. So you want to limit it. Well, like I said, I watch it maybe 3 or 4 hours a night most nights. That's a lot of TV. But all my thinking time is in the day when I'm out walking or preparing for videos, or sometimes I can actually do this now. I can just sit and think. So you also want to socialize for most people. And you can do that. You get on a Facebook group and make a Facebook group friend and find somebody like here. There's a group here in Armenia, which I was banned from, and I still can't get back in, even though I was invited back. I can't get back in. But you can get on these Facebook groups and you can meet people there and then meet up for coffee. You know, meet them in real life. Here in Armenia, in Cuenca, there's tons of them here. There's one that I know of, and I'll see if I can do a video on it, maybe even this week. There's language share programs. In Manizales, I know there was a few, where you go and you find local people that want to learn English, and maybe there's a few gringos around. Yes, it's not a derogatory term. Look at me, I'm a gringo with shaggy hair. And you go there, and so you're not only working on your language in a real situation where you're trying to work out conversations, but you're getting to meet people, you're making friends, and that's a win in so many ways. It's kind of like you're doing some volunteer work, and you're meeting people, you're working on your language, you're giving yourself something to do that's routine, because generally they're a couple times a week, every week. So that's a very productive thing that you can do. And you can always get yourself a pet, take care of the pet. I love dogs, and I've had dogs through most of my life. Many of you saw my dogs when I was in Ecuador. The problem is, if I'm out and traveling around, it's not practical to take a German Shepherd with you. And, I don't really want to leave them behind all the time. And so where my life is right now, it's not practical for me. But for a lot of people, it would be practical. For me, it's like I've got a full-time job that takes me away from home a lot, and so it's not practical. But for most people, it would be an option. So those are things that, aside from figuring out what to put in your suitcase and what your health care is going to be, this is a topic you really need to give some thought to. Now, I talk mostly about retirement, but you don't have to be retired to deal with these same things. You could be down here for whatever reason, and you still have to contend with all of these very same things. Give it some active thought. Sit down with pencil and paper and think about things that you can do, and actually plan it out like you're planning out other things. What you don't want to do is get here and just fall into deep depression and blame it on this place, because people in the United States who never move from where they are fall into the same trap, where they end up just sitting in their apartment alone, eating cat food and watching TV all day long until the day they die. That's not life. And you can be surrounded with paradise, it doesn't matter. It's you that's going to make your life have meaning, and not where you are. Okay. Very sad to leave your dogs. Yeah. Was sad. Well, one died. It was a street dog, and I had him for a number of months, but ended up dying. That was very heart-wrenching. It was very sad. The other one is actually living a good life. Somebody I knew that had this big farm south of Cuenca, and the farm had horses and other animals, had a big creek running through the property. Rabbits were running around, so Delta now is just out running in pastures and chasing down rabbits. So it's kind of paradise for Delta. Colombian burgers versus the U.S. Hold on, I want to try something here. Your guinea pigs today. Just try a little slideshow. Hopefully it works. Tell me if you can see it. I was asked, how are the burgers in Colombia and how do they compare to the U.S.? And all of these pictures here that you're looking at are all places here in Armenia, actually. Not all that I've taken, but I borrowed some, but this is Armenian burgers. And this is what I want you to know. There are some that are excellent. They're very good. But in the United States, what makes a good burger primarily is the quality of the burger and how it's cooked. Whether it's a thick burger that you put over charcoal, you don't need anything beyond that, or whether it's a smash burger where you flatten it, throw it on a grill, and the edges get a little crispy, like In-N-Out Burger or Five Guys. But it's about the beef. And the toppings, well, like you go to Red Robin, you can kind of get carried away with all kinds of things. But, when it really comes down to what's a good burger, it's all about the beef, how it's cooked, how it's treated. Here in Colombia, it's like the opposite. The the beef is maybe the least important of it. What's considered to be a good burger is how high you can pile it. Where's the beef? Yeah, it's almost like that. Now, there are some that are excellent. There are some that are very good. And in Cuenca, there were a handful. They were hard to find, got easier as more quality started showing up. But here, you've got a good chance of hitting a decent burger. But this is what goes on with the beef here. It's not as important. You don't have a chef going out generally trying to find the best quality he can get, or maybe grinding up his own. You just, you'll see him run down to the local Olympica and give me a few pounds of hamburger and, take it back. And then what is often done, and this I've also found in Cuenca, is various fillers and spices will be used in it to kind of offset that. You'll even find sometimes where they'll put, crackers in it, like a meatloaf or something along those lines. I found it more in Ecuador. Some of that goes back to I've got to make it stretch as far as possible, which is how the meatloaf came about, actually. So I'm going to put in all these fillers to be able to make more of it, fillers that are inexpensive. And so that still carries. That happened in Ecuador, it happens here, it happened in the US with meatloaf. So there's still some of a history of that. But here it's like all these pictures that you're looking at, they're piled high. The higher it goes, the more stuff they put on it, the more they consider that it's a good burger. They love to put eggs on their burger. They like to put French fries in their burger. Loads of cheese. Some of these, one's called the Ghost, where the cheese is just over the whole thing, so that it looks like a Casper the Ghost sort of burger. And it's not that you don't really find a lot of really bad burgers here, but personally, I don't like all that stuff. I prefer not to have it. Some people, if you like it, you're gonna love the burgers here. There's one of the Ghost burgers with the cheese gratinada. But there's just a different philosophy about what a burger is here. So I thought I would share that with you because I was been asked a few times about it. And I wanted to try the little photos, so I'd like your opinion on that. Okay, last topic. Questions to you. Question number 1. The Halloween video, if you didn't watch it, please watch it. And you may want to watch it to the end. There's some things later in the video that get kind of interesting. But I used, with only a few exceptions where I did a couple shots with my cell phone, but for the most part I used my new camera. I think I've got it dialed in, or I'm close to it. I found most of my footage was usable, where before it was little to none. I'd like your opinion on what you thought of the video quality that was in that. If you notice any difference, it was stabilized. The darkness and light, the shifts, it seemed to be a lot fewer. I think I got it dialed in, but I'd like other viewpoints. So, please let me know about that. You can do it in the regular comments after this video is over. You can send me an email, but please, 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 I would like your feedback. Number 2, this software that for the last couple of weeks that I've used, and while I was too busy this week to do much, but I did add this little feature where I put the photos up. I've got the intro going. I'll learn it better. But what do you think of this software as compared to the YouTube that I had before, with no ability to do anything, just the this part? I would like to I would like to know what you think about that, because I mean, if I keep it going, it's going to cost me $20 a month, and I don't really want to incur expenses any more than I have to, but it may be worth doing it. So please, your feedback on that. You can start asking your questions. Remember, 4 question marks before the question, because I'm going to get to it in just a second here. And the last thing is, I posed a question before. I got one answer back, and I would really like to know what you think. I've been considering doing a group call, a group video call, where we'd all see each other on the screen, broken up in little things, and do it once a month for the 5 highest donors, contributors to the channel. Do that once a month. I'm thinking it might be fun to do that. It might be kind of community. It's 5 people that can actually, we can talk back and forth. It's like a Skype call, but with more people, like a party line Skype call. So I would like to know if you're interested in that. I got one person with feedback on that. That was 2 weeks ago I asked it, and that person thought it was a definitely good idea. So those are the 3 things: the camera use in the Halloween video, this software versus the YouTube. Is it worth the expense? And 3, the idea of a group call for the 5 highest contributors. And as far as the contributions go, last month I have a goal every month, and last month I just squeaked over the line. I got $4 to spare, but I hit the mark that I needed. So thank you all for that, all of you that have contributed in various ways. The last thing. On the grand-columbia.com website, where this is streaming live, if anybody is of a mind to do any kind of contribution, and I think there might be a setting for it, but right now I think it's a minimum of $5. I'm going to see if there's a setting where I can change that and drop it down, because whatever would be fine. But I think there's a minimum of $5. I would like if somebody who is of a mind to do a contribution would go there and send a contribution through. I want to I don't know if it's working okay or not, and so I would like to try that out, because that'll have something to do with whether I keep the software or not too, because that has no subtraction from it. There's no big bite like YouTube takes out of it. Okay, so let's get to the questions. Let's see what we got today. Okay, question is, if people think Colombia is not progressive, look at a recent gay mayor, female, that was elected in Bogota. Was a mayor? Yeah, mayor in Bogota. And would Armenia do the same thing, or is it conservative? I wouldn't say, for the most part, they're not. Progressive is another word for basically socialistic minded. It used to have a little different meaning, but that's the meaning these days. I wouldn't say that most Colombians are that way at all, but I'm not so sure I would say they were conservative either. Libertarian, if you want to compare it to the U.S., is really the way people are here. The attitudes here are really more live and let live. Hey, if you're not causing any harm, I really don't care what you're doing. There may be, although I don't really see it. You see people walk around, once in a while you see a tranny or somebody who's, lighting a loafer's gay, the kind that's putting on, a flamboyant, flowery show. I don't know what, I don't know how they describe that, but the ones I'm talking about, the ones that came out and their voice and actions, they're exposing to the world that they're obviously gay. You see, now and then, and nobody gives a second thought. I mean, personally, I could care less. And that seems to be the attitude here. If somebody wants to be with somebody else that's of the same sex, I don't think anybody cares here. They don't look down. It's not a plus or a minus. It just is. And I will bet you that in the U.S. there's a lot of virtue signaling, and if they were to elect a gay female mayor, a fair number of those votes would come from people who think that they're supporting that freedom of thought. Where here, it's more of, was she good and was she qualified, and whether she was gay female really would have little to do with it. That's really the mindset of where Colombia is, and that's why you have every make and model of the human race here, and nobody really gives it a thought for the most part. I mean, you're always going to have your exceptions, but that's how it generally is here. The talking and video is out of sync. I keep explaining that, and I know people are tuning in at different times. I realize it's out of sync. For the last couple times I've used it, it's out of sync. I don't believe it's a software. I think it's a setting issue. I was too busy to get it taken care of this week, so we're just going to have to deal with it. I'll try to get it addressed, find out what's going on with it, have support solve it, whatever, so that it comes back into sync. It's close enough where I just wanted to, I had other things that were more pressing for me to do this week. Speaking of bytes taken out of donation, is there a byte taken out of Google Pay? No, Google Pay is absolutely the best one. It's instant, and there's zero that you pay, and there's zero that I pay. So if you send me $10, I receive $10. It's the absolute best way. Will I review new visa changes? Well, there are no new visa changes. I know that everybody's talking about the how to expat video, which is kind of a scare video. It's a lot of things. There is a proposal, but there's always proposals, and it's not the only proposal. And it's a proposal for changes in the video that will up various thresholds. And it's pretty steep. It goes from $800 to $1,300, but you notice he does it in dollars and not in pesos. So what conversion rate is he even using? It's not very good information. But I saw the video. It's really premature, and it's why you're not seeing a ton of videos on this. It's kind of irresponsible to be talking about a proposed law that we're at least a year away from, if it actually becomes law. But it doesn't even, the process doesn't work that way. Somebody will, it's very similar to the US. Somebody's going to come up with, okay, here's a proposal, and it's going to go through various committees. There's going to be amendments to it, and how it comes out of that, it'll either just be shot down completely, or maybe they'll amend it. Maybe this threshold was here, but okay, I'll sign on to it, but you got to drop it down to here. So the bottom line is, we don't know, because it doesn't exist. There really is nothing to talk about yet, except somebody decided to make a proposal. That doesn't make it real. It doesn't make it a law. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but to start altering your plans or change, it just doesn't make sense, because every year there's proposals. And as a matter of fact, it was only a couple years ago where the current visa laws were made, and usually you don't have changes that frequent, so there's just as good a chance as this thing is just going to get blown out of the water. But bottom line is, nobody knows yet. The one I would keep my eye on is the website medellinguru.com. He's pretty dialed in, and he has a direct connection to a very good visa lawyer that works out of Medellin. And so if something actually does come up, I think that would be a good source for it. If anything ever becomes substantial, of course I'll talk about it. Can I recommend? Please start the question with 4 question marks. I almost missed this one. Can I recommend a good visa company or attorney in Armenia? I can recommend firsthand, and also with knowledge of a number of other gringos, of somebody that's in Pereira. I've presented this in the past. There's a video where I talk about visa, and I put up in the video a copy of the card, and you can pause it. If you go back probably about 10 months or so, it's actually, I think the screenshot is a screenshot of a visa. You can look there, or send me an email and I'll send you a picture of the card. TV, where do you get American content? Well, with the internet, it's pretty simple. I have Kodi. I don't use it very much. I use mostly Stremio. I think it's Stremio.io, but you can just do a search, Stremio, Stremio. It's a really good software platform. You don't have to do constant updates. That's the problem with Kodi. Kodi has busted links, and you've got to constantly keep up with it. It's every month maintenance. The upside of Kodi is you can get a lot of live TV. You can get basically everything that exists in the world on the internet. You can access through Kodi. So that's the plus size. I have it now and then. Plus side. I use it now and then, but it's rare. For the most part, I use Stremio or I use Netflix. To be honest, I mentioned watching the Bills game. I can watch that live on Kodi. I don't watch it live. I call up the NFL graphic site, and then I put in the Buffalo Bills radio station, so I'm listening to the radio, and I can see the graphic display of the yards and the stats and all of that. And while that's going on, what I'll do is I'll do work on my laptop. So I have this stuff going on the laptop. I plug in my little earphones here, and I'm listening to the Bills game as I'm doing some work. And then every so often, if there's a big play, I go and graphically I look at it. I don't sit and watch 3-hour games anymore. You know, I try to make my time useful. But you could watch it on Kodi. I could go to Kodi. There's sports live programs, and they'll usually have 10 or 12 links, and maybe of the 10 or 12 links, 8 of them will be busted. So you might have to go through, check this link, doesn't work, check this link, check this link, check this link, and then you come across one that works, and then you watch the game. Once in a while, that link will be busted at some point during the game, and then you have to go check for another link. Usually no, but sometimes it's like that. That's how it is with the football games on Kodi. It sounds like a big hassle. It really isn't that big a hassle. It's it's all free. It's all, well, Netflix, I have Netflix and I pay for a subscription. But the truth is, I don't watch with Netflix very often. I mostly watch YouTube or Stremio. Any other questions? I don't know if I missed any. I see a lot of writing that doesn't have the question marks, but trying to see. Okay, I think that's it for today. Last week I signed out. Then I moved this back into my bedroom. Then I walked around, I talked a little bit, and then I went into the bathroom, and you could hear me pee, and you could hear me flush the toilet. It was pretty hilarious. I didn't pull that video down. It's, you know, that's just how life goes sometimes. I actually clicked to turn it off, but apparently in this software you have to click it a second time, and I didn't realize that. This week I'll, you know, make sure that it's actually off. But I know some of you got a big kick out of it. Most people tuned out, you know, prior to that, so there's probably just a handful of you that noticed that. I found it pretty funny, and it's still there if you want to hear me pee and flush the toilet. Thank God I don't do you know, any real bizarre things that get caught with. Please, if you're going to ask a question, 4 question marks preceding the question so I can find it and read it. But I was asked a question about, you can read it on the screen, but it's basically, would you recommend Armenia for business? If you're coming here from the U.S. and if you're young enough, sure, why not? There's a lot of opportunity here. I had a long conversation with the guy who does the bird watching video that I interviewed. He does a bird watching thing, the tours, and I interviewed him. And we talked about this. I see a ton of opportunities here because I come from the U.S. where business is more matured. So there's more of an awareness about customer service and opportunities, where here it's still working to that point. I won't say it's backwards here, but I think there's a lot of opportunity that people aren't aware of. When one of the problems is the education system. If you go and to learn business, they don't teach how to start and run a business. They really only talk about large corporations. You know, it's like if you know, how to get a job at GE, General Electric. They don't talk about you know, renting a small room and having a one-man business that grows and grows. So there's a lot of opportunity for business, but if you're coming here, especially if you're retirement or you're not going to want to commit yourself to, you know, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, then I would say don't do it, because there's obstacles that you have to overcome. Taxation can be a real issue if you're not a local person, and it can put all your retirement funds, you know, at jeopardy. So there's a lot of consequences to it that you want to be careful. If you don't need it, don't do it. But having said that, there are a ton of opportunities here that local people don't necessarily recognize. And if you're really business astute, if you really are top of your game in the U.S. as far as business goes, if you know what you're doing, you could come here and do really well. Now, if you're coming from the U.S., just being from the U.S. isn't going to do anything for you. And it's like, I want to be in a business. Well, it's probably going to be more difficult for you that way than if you're a local person. But if you're very business astute, you've actually got a leg up. No, I'm not going to leave the software running again. I don't think. I didn't mean to leave it running last time. Yeah, I'm avoiding the conversation on the visa. There's some comments, and they're not really questions to me. There's no question marks, but there is a conversation. But the thing is, you know, the rumors out there are not real. So there really is no point about looking at what am I going to do? Wait until something actually occurs, because there's a very good chance that those things are not going to come through as this person is saying, or if it does come through, it's going to be in a different form. So, the investment visa is going from $93,000 to $150,000. But nobody knows that's the case. And just because, you know, a YouTuber said that that was proposed doesn't make it law, and it doesn't make it January. Actually, it's very likely to be more than a year away. But I mean, you don't know. I mean, it could be January, and it could be exactly what he's saying. It's just not very likely. So, you know, I'm not taking it serious, and I've got one more to do. Mine is 3 years, and then after 3 years, I have to renew it for 2 more years for it to become permanent. And I'm not the least bit stressed about it because it doesn't exist. It's you know, it's like I came out and did a YouTube video and just kind of, you know, took some obscure thing and said, well, this is what's going to happen. Well, you know, that video is probably causing more harm than good because there isn't a basis for it, at least yet. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and it's like I said, there is a proposal, that's true, but it's not real yet. And in the US, you see all the time proposals, and they come out, either they go away or they're modified in most cases. It could come through exactly as is being proposed, but it's not the case right now. So, you know, you kind of want to wait until something actually occurs. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to log off. Thank you all. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you next Sunday.